Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zane Ross, Engagement Manager here at America Makes, and I will be your host today for the TRX webinar presentation. Before we kick things off, just know that there is an open opportunity for questions and answers at the end, but during Richard's presentation today, do not hesitate to either put your notes in the chat or raise your hand, and I will interrupt Rich and give a quick pause and let you come off mute and ask your question. So if you want, you can do that or wait till the end. It's up to you. We do encourage open communication between the attendees and the presenter. So with that, I want to welcome everybody to today's webinar. And today's webinar is on the Nadcap Aerospace Supplier Accreditation Program, where we'll be taking a look at recent developments in Nadcap, focusing specifically on additive manufacturing, forging, and casting. I am honored to introduce our speaker, Dr. Richard Freeman. Richard brings over 30 years of aerospace and metallurgical experience, starting his career as a metallurgist at Collins Aerospace before leading aerospace sector work at TWI for 25 years. Since 2021, he served as principal staff engineer at the Performance Review Institute, guiding the development of Nadcap audit criteria for forgings, castings, and AM technology. Richard holds a PhD in metallurgy, is a chartered engineer, a fellow of the Institute of Materials, and serves on multiple international standards committees related to welding and additive manufacturing. Please join me in giving your full attention to Dr. Richard Freeman for his presentation. Richard, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Zane, and good afternoon to everyone that's joined. I appreciate you taking the time for this presentation on the Nadcap program.
Oh, we've got a black screen there, Richard.
Sorry, it's
no worries. Gotta
for some
love
reason every time
Microsoft Teams.
I'll tell you what, I'll move it down every time I go into slide mode. For some reason it seems to cut it off, but
Interesting.
Hopefully you can still see this large enough on the screen. I don't want to mess around with the technology and waste your time here. So the agenda is I'll give you an overview of the Nadcap program, the history of it starting, what it tries to accomplish, what it covers. I'll walk into the additive manufacturing task group, what's been developed in that group, and then move into the metallic materials manufacturing task group that covers forging, casting, and also metallic powder manufacture for additive manufacture, and obviously Q&A and discussion. But as Zane said, if there are questions that come up, please raise your hand, put it in the chat, and quite happy to stop and cover those things off immediately, so while the questions clear in your mind. So let's walk into Nadcap. It's 35 years old this year. So in 1990, primarily in the United States, it started as a aerospace and defense accreditation program, and was pulled together by major OEMs in the aerospace industry. And the main reason for that was to have a common approach to auditing suppliers. So there'll be many of you on the call that are suppliers, maybe into the aerospace industry and other industries. And one thing you'll know is that you get audited very regularly by your OEM customers. So what the plan was with this was to have a common approach that was agreed upon by multiple OEMs. I'll call them subscribers because they subscribe to the Nadcap program. And these subscribers would pull together audit criteria in special processes. And when they audited their supply base, and that supply base was shared by many of those subscribers, the audit would be a common audit towards heat treatment, welding, NDT, chemical processing, etc. And that really has helped to take the slack up and reduce the amount of audits that a supplier would see from their OEM customer. Rather than it being an annual audit, it might have moved to 18 months or 2 years to allow the Nadcap audits to take place and to reduce the burden both on the subscribers with their quality personnel and on the suppliers who have to deal with multiple audits per year, which is a massive drain on the quality function. So just in numbers a little bit, currently we've got 63 subscribers, and I'll show a pictorial view of that in just a minute. At our Nadcap meeting next month, Honda Aero and Honda R&D will be moved to full subscriber membership, so that will take it up to 65. And those 65 subscribers run the program, and we, PRI, actually administer that program on behalf of those 60 plus subscribers. So in numbers, we accredit about 4,300 suppliers every year. There are 26 critical processes accredited, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a minute. And an exact number, last year we did 6,224 audits in 53 different countries, and we've got 340 approximately special process auditors around the world that Nadcap hires, who have often worked for OEMs like GE, Rolls-Royce, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, etc. More than half of them are US nationals, and we need that because of ITAR. So whenever ITAR is declared in an order, we need an unrestricted US national to be able to audit those companies. Although we do have several non-ITAR auditors all around the world, all over Southeast Asia, all over Europe and the United Kingdom as well. So pictorially, you'll see 63 participating subscribers on the screen there. These are OEMs that subscribe to the Nadcap program. So it's probably worth telling you how Nadcap sort of makes its money in a sense, or makes a living, and the subscribers actually pay an annual fee to the program to allow us to run it, to allow us to hire and train auditors, and of course the vast majority of our money then also comes from the audits that we schedule, run and accredit on behalf of our subscribers, those sort of 6,200 audits every year. And we also have we do an awful lot of online training as well. And we also run a registrar bureau as well. So for those companies that can't get AS9100 certification, we can, from a PRI perspective, actually offer that as a service as well. So there pictorially on the screen are 24 of those special process accreditations. There are 2 new ones that just started in the last 6 months: counterfeit mitigation, which really has an emphasis on electrical, electronic, electromechanical components, and then more recently cybersecurity of physical products, which looks at ensuring that you do not have counterfeit products getting into the supply chain, and equally that you have security of the way that you manufacture those products, and particularly the way in which the software that you utilize to manufacture products and the whole supply chain is not compromised from a security perspective. To give you some sort of feel in there, the 3 biggest commodities are chemical processing, heat treatment, and non-destructive testing, all of which have over 1,000 audits every year. So it shows you the amount of suppliers that we look at around the world. So let's move now into the additive manufacturing task group. So Nadcap has been working in additive for some 10 years, and I was, prior to being a staff engineer, I was actually a supplier into the program for 11 years before I joined PRI. We started out with laser and electron beam powder bed fusion. That started out in the welding task group because it was the most appropriate group to put it into. But 2 years ago, we formed a new additive manufacturing task group, and I'd have to say it's grown leaps and bounds in the last 2 years. Rather than have people sat into a welding task group that had some AM experience, we've now got 25 subscribers with excellent AM expertise within their company and a whole bunch of suppliers, all keen, and the rate of change in that task group has been tremendous since that task group officially started 2 years ago, and we migrated the audit criteria over from the welding task group. So just to give you an idea, the likes of the companies that sit in that task group, the chair of the task group is Dave Abbott from GE Aerospace in Cincinnati, well known in the additive community with 30 or so years of experience in additive. And then you can see listed on this slide, and these slides will be made available to Zane so he can push them out to the America Makes membership. You can see the participating subscribers that sit in our face-to-face Nadcap meetings all have voting rights and can vote on the audits and vote on the ballots. And you'll see those in yellow denoted to Airbus companies, Collins, Goodrich, General Atomics, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon are companies that either mandate this technology to their supply chain or actively encourage their supply chain to get audited to this Nadcap accreditation. And that's important because they're then very much encouraging their suppliers to get accredited to what they believe in and have bought into over the last 35 years in the Nadcap program. So a quick eye chart just on what the task group is doing at the moment. In every task group, we tend to have a core document. So these are questions that are asked in every single commodity audit, special process audit. So for every single additive manufacturing audit, we have this core criteria called AC 7131, and I'll walk through what is covered in that in just a minute. We have actually significantly rewritten that document recently, been through several ballots, and that got published at the end of April for audits from the 3rd of August. So for anyone that is having powder bed fusion audits from August, this new and updated audit criteria will be applicable. And similarly, at the same time, we rewrote the /1 document, which is powder bed fusion for laser and electron beam, published on the same date because the two are connected. And once again, in a couple of slides time, I'll walk you through what's actually in that audit criteria. But since those two documents, which have been around for a few years, have now been added to, so we've worked hard over the last 2 years on directed energy deposition audit criteria. That actually completed its final Nadcap Management Council ballot after 2 task group ballots in early May, and we're actually I'm on the route to get that published by the end of June for audit starting at the end of September, early October. And the reason that we publish something and then give it a 90-day effectivity is to allow those companies that want to get audited to have a look at that audit criteria, do a gap analysis against their own auditee documentation, and then get ready to do a self-audit, because every company that gets audited to Nadcap has to upload a self-audit 30 days in advance of their official Nadcap audit to show that they've gone through the process, and that if they have found any non-conformances in their self-audit, that they've taken care of those prior to the official Nadcap audit. Also, worth me saying that one of the prerequisites of a Nadcap audit is that your quality management system is AS9100. And that's obviously a a normal thing for aerospace companies, but for those that are moving into aerospace, obviously slightly different. If you've had ISO 9001, you won't be far away from that, but certainly S9100 or an equivalent one that's offered by our quality systems group within Nadcap is something that is a prerequisite. And then, as you'll see, also further down the page, /3, we're working on non-metallic materials. So this is selective laser sintering. We've just had our first task group ballot, which ended on the 1st of May. We've resolved those comments and we'll discuss them all on our next NADCAP meeting, which takes place in a couple of weeks' time. And then we've also started work on fused filament fabrication. Got a sub-team together that started work on that at the end of April, and we meet again next Monday to progress that before we brief the task group at our meeting in 2 weeks' time. And then we balloted all of our subscriber members on the next metallic EM process, and we'll make that decision at our NADCAP meeting in 2 weeks' time. And the choices were cold spray additive, binder jet additive, or friction deposition additive. And we'll have an answer for that after the NADCAP meeting in June. So just to give you some clarity on the core document that is asked at every single additive audit, this covers information that would be that would be general to any AM audit. So we have information on how you receive a contract from your customer, how you flow that down with any fixed process or specific bespoke requirements from your OEM customer, subscriber customer, into your workflow. How you then go about purchasing. So anything that you need to purchase in terms of consumables or purchasing of gas for the powder bed fusion process or DED process, and of course feedstock, powder or wire. And of course we'll add to that as we look into non-metallic materials, particularly filament that we'll be looking at for the fused filament fabrication. We'll look at how you put together your work instructions and your shop travel list to cover the pertinent information that is required to be looked at as you start manufacturing aerospace parts. Look at any process improvement methods and methodology you have, the inspection frequency you have, inspection of parts and how you accept and reject them, and then how you qualify your personnel to operate machines, inspect both visually and through non-destructive inspection. So that's asked at every single additive audit, regardless of whether it's metallic or non-metallic. With regard to /1, which is powder bed fusion, we've utilized a number of international standards to help us along with that. So for those of you who know the SAE AMS specs, EMS 7003 is laser powder bed fusion, 7007 is electron beam powder bed fusion, and 7032 talks about AM machine qualification. So it's essentially the installation qualification, operational qualification, machine qualification. Now, we don't ask direct questions from those international specs directly into audit criteria, but we've taken the very good things in those specs and ISO ASTM and AWS specs that we've also looked at to help develop this /1 audit criteria. So within there, the following major things get covered. So equipment, the installation of equipment, whether it's installed in a particularly electron beam equipment in a facility where you have a safe magnetic zone around it, whether you're going to put the equipment in a place with controlled temperature and humidity as you're dealing with powder that is sometimes very volatile with regard to picking up oxygen from the atmosphere, or indeed has an inherent fire risk if you don't look at that and control that powder in a very safe and controlled manner. We look at the cleanliness of the equipment and the preventive maintenance and calibration that you have with regard to your machines, and how you look at the control of the powder. We look at your control of procedures. What happens if you have a planned interruption, i.e. the build is so long that you need to stop at a specific point and refill your powder hopper. Or if you have an unplanned build interruption, that could be some sort of power cut or a deterioration of the performance of your equipment with regard to key process variables moving out of an upper or lower limit, and how you control the software, anything from the slicing files that you use to build up your build strategy and your build program through to the software that controls the operation of your additive powder bed fusion machine. We look at process control, your process control documentation, PCD, and the key process variables that need to be recorded, monitored, and controlled if possible, that really help you make repeatable and reproducible parts. We look for monitoring of the process, and then we ask some questions on subsequent thermal processing, whether that is a simple stress relief to remove a part from the build plate or remove the support structure, or whether you then go through a further heat treatment. As we move into directed energy deposition, for example, plasma-assisted wire, DED, on Ti-64, at the end of that process, you're looking at a full heat treatment, and we ask that the supplier has a third-party heat treatment company, or if they do it in-house, or they Nadcap accredited for heat treatment, to allow them to conduct that in a controlled manner with all the pyrometry you'd expect to see in a heat treatment furnace. We look at inspection and acceptance criteria, essentially your first article inspection package of test results, inspection of the parts and traceability. And then we also have 2 compliance job audits, typically one historic, where you go through all of the questions historically on a job that was produced maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and make sure that was compliant, and then 1 or 2 live in process jobs where you might see a job being loaded, 1 in process, and then 1 perhaps at the end of build where the part is being taken out and you might see the powder being removed or the support structure being cut off, just to see the process in motion and to check compliance with the auditee documentation. Just to give you an idea of some of the things we've seen over the last few years with regard to previous audits. So this is a combination of anonymized data in approximately 90. It's probably touching 100 now, powder bed fusion audits, and also some subscriber audits of the AM suppliers. So current Nadcap AM suppliers that we accredit regularly are based in the United States, in Canada, UK, Germany, Italy, Turkey, Switzerland, Taiwan, and India. So it's very much worldwide. And I'm talking to several other companies in Europe at the moment to look at getting accredited to our updated audit criteria. So some of the common non-conformances NCRs you see are sort of grouped as how you handle the powder, how you manage the powder. And this is more to do with once you've purchased the powder, you've received it into your facility, it's then how do you verify, admit to the certificate of conformity, release it to the shop floor, and then store it in a manner in which it can only be accessed by authorized personnel, and it is stored in an environment where temperature and humidity is controlled. Having a moisture and contamination control plan so that when powder is taken out of sealed containers, often with an inert gas like argon, that comes from the powder manufacturer, how it's then kept in a controlled environment, and you have a prevention plan to stop any foreign object getting into the powder, or indeed moisture getting in there, which leads to extra hydrogen and oxygen within the powder. Some of the things we've also seen is inadequate training of the machine operators, management of the KPVs in the process control documentation, software control, often revision control, calibration and verification plans, a maintenance plan that makes sure that you maintain your equipment to a regular interval. Machine approval. We do ask a question, is your machine approved for the work that's taken place? Is it been approved by your own company, and has it been approved by your subscriber customer? We've also seen things on build reports and also non-compliant tensile test results when you look at the first article inspection package compared to specification requirements. So some of the things we've seen over the last few years as we've audited. So let me move on to /2, directed energy deposition. So this audit criteria, which will be published by the end of June and effective for audits 3 months on, covers laser. There are a whole bunch of generic questions and then supplements that actually ask questions on the various DD processes in scope of the audit. So we are covering laser powder DD, laser wire DD, electron beam wire DD, and gas metal arc and plasma assisted wire DD within this one audit criteria. We've used AMS 7005, 7010, 7027 that cover those processes, and 7032 on how you look at your machine qualification. And you can see at the bottom of that slide there the working group of OEMs like subscribers like BAE Systems, GE, GKN, General Atomics, Rolls, Raytheon, Spirit, but equally North Titanium, who were a massive help for us with regard to plasma wire DD, RPMI in South Dakota, big help on laser powder DD, and I've also had contact with Siaki on electron beam wire DD. From the laser wire DD side, actually GKN Aerospace, who use that process in-house and have qualified components for flight, were a massive help in the development of that audit criteria. So let me now move on to the metallic materials manufacturing task group. So this group is very active and supports the forgings, castings, so that's sand and investment casting, and metallic powder manufacture. And you can see the subscribers there that are listed, that are active in that group, some of whom mandate some of those commodities to their supply base. And it's a good active group, very enthusiastic. So from a forging and castings perspective, the reason that we got into this is that there are actually very, very few industry specifications controlling the manufacture of forgings and castings. Now, forging and castings have been produced for decades for the aerospace sector and other industry sectors, and produced very well, often by specialists in the forging and casting industry who have their own specifications, or specifications that are flowed down from their subscriber customer for them to control a fixed process. So, but there aren't really, if you look at it, AMS specs that control that process, nor are they ISO specs that cover it. And general standards like AS9100 really are QMS. They're there to control the quality management system and not to go into in-depth technical process like forging and casting, even though some of the things can be covered in there. So the Nadcap Management Council about 10 years ago asked for this group to be set up. They started with forgings, and that number is AC 7140. And then a few years later, sand casting was published, and then investment casting was published as well. For forgings, the length of a forging audit will be 3 to 5 days, depending on the number of pieces of equipment. And you can see whether some of the forging houses have pretty much everything that's listed there. Some will just ring roll. Some will have a combination of mechanical screw or hydraulic press. And the audit will vary between 3 and 5 days, depending on the number of pieces of equipment. Every single forging audit will include the following job audits after all of the core questions on the forging process, both a combination of in-process and historical. One on the billet and the mult preparation, several on heating and forging of the components, and that will vary quite a lot depending on the amount of equipment that's actually within the facility being audited, and then post-forging steps including testing, which is one job audit that covers off the forging process. For casting, particularly investment casting, where you are looking at a number of different ways of casting a product, they're typically 3 days, although if a number of extra materials were being produced, they might move to 4 days. And that will cover off whether you produce equiax castings, directly solidified, or single crystal, or a combination of those within one facility for different customers. There's one historic long job audit in there, and then a whole bunch of multiple shorter in process audits covering everything from the production of cores to molds to producing your wax pattern, casting the process, deshelling, and then of course all the way through to abrasive blasting, any salvage welding, hipping, etc., all the way through to final inspection and dispatch. Now, some casting companies in the investment casting arena do have proprietary investment casting processes. I can think of 2 or 3 companies that have proprietary processes that they don't even let their own staff see, never mind customers. So we do have an agreement with them that we will audit them. We will not audit those processes because they would not allow us to, so there'd be no loss of intellectual property, and we concentrate on the general investment casting process they still use to investment cast parts for their aerospace customers. So there are about 40 aerospace forging and casting suppliers accredited to date in 10 different countries, many in the US, some in Mexico, the United Kingdom, all over Europe and Southeast Asia, China, Japan and Taiwan. We have got more subscribers now pushing and encouraging their forging and casting suppliers to get Nadcap accredited. And some of the benefits of getting accredited, in not just in forging and casting, but right away across the patch, are when you do get accredited, your company will appear in the Aerospace Qualified Manufacturers List in the PRIE Audit Net system. That's publicly accessible database, and often people, I did it as a supplier myself, if I was doing a development project with welding in a previous company and I needed a heat treatment company, I'd go to the QML to go and find heat treatment companies in the United Kingdom that were accredited for that particular heat treatment process, and we utilise them to finish our projects off. I'll give you some ideas from the forging commodity. Minor non-conformities found in the forgings commodity reduced by 50% over the last 5 years. And I think that is the forging companies being more compliant with the Nadcap accreditation process and actually firming up all of their documentation to meet the demands of their aerospace customers. And of course, as a result of that, the number of forging suppliers with extended accreditation merit status has doubled since 2020. So just to move on to that point, when you first get accredited for Nadcap, you will get a 12-month accreditation. Your following accreditation would be 12 months. Then you'd move up to 18 months, provided you did not have a significant number of major non-conformances. You would do 2 18-month accreditations and then move to 24 months. And you would stay at 24 months as long as you did not have major non-conformances, which is a departure from a major process as part of the audit. And of course, as I mentioned early on, one of the things is we have seen by as much as 50% reduction for some of the forging companies that they are having far less audits by their subscribers because Nadcap is taking the strain and they're moving to auditing their supplies maybe every 2 years or so rather than every year, which is a massive cost saving for both the subscribers, the OEMs, but mainly for the suppliers and their quality function. So just finishing off here, last few slides. Metallic powder manufacture first was discussed in Nadcap just before COVID, sort of October 2019, and then COVID obviously put a big dent into that, and we were virtual for best part of 2 years. We eventually got the audit criteria, which covers gas atomized powder manufacture and the plasma powder manufacturer. We got trial audits took place in USA and Europe during 2023, and then after a series of ballots of our audit criteria, we managed to publish it in March this year after some auditor training in Canada, and the initial audits are available and now being scheduled from the back end of June. And we did use AMS 7002A on powder manufacture in the development of this audit criteria. You'll see the working group there of subscribers, but I tend to focus you more on the right-hand side of that slide because without the support of powder manufacturers like AP&C, ATI, Carpenter, Hoganas, Techna, 6K, and now Ben Duval, we would never have got this over the line. The expertise that they brought to us and helped us to get this audit criteria together was what this got this over the line and got this published. And just a little more, while it is designed to cover as wide as a variation of powder manufacture as possible, so it wouldn't just be for powdering additive manufacture, it could be for thermal spraying, where you maybe go down to 105 micron, so maybe between 50 and 105 micron particle size distribution. It could also be used for metal injection molding, where your particle size distribution is down as low as 20 micron. Or it could be used to hip into solid product and then machined. So we will see where we go with that. We did 2 trial audits in 2023 in Carpenter in the US and Hoganas in Germany. And the auditor training took place in Techna and AP&C in Quebec in Canada in February. And we've trained auditors now, and we've got several conversations going on with powder manufacturers to get accredited 25 and 26. So how can suppliers get involved in the Nadcap program? You may be contacted by your OEM customer, your Nadcap subscriber, and may be instructed, encouraged to get Nadcap accredited. You may be encouraged because they don't mandate officially through the supply chain, but they encourage their supply chain. We've had several suppliers that get Nadcap accredited because it's either great PR for them to get accredited to show they're Nadcap accredited and increase their credibility and go out onto the qualified manufacturers list, or they're moving into the aerospace sector and they really want that AS9100 QMS and the Nadcap accreditation to help promote their capabilities. We've covered the Nadcap accreditation with regard to duration, And Nadcap audits do vary. So for the topics I've covered this afternoon for you, AM audits are typically 2 to 3 days. Casting audits typically 3 days. Forging audits are normally 4 to 5 days because a lot of equipment is audited, and metallic powder manufacture is 3 days. You can also get involved by coming to the Nadcap meetings. We meet 3 times per year, and I'll put one of my final slides up to show you where our next few meetings are. Between US and European locations generally, suppliers who come along and attend 2 face-to-face meetings are available to get supplier voting member status, which allows those suppliers to vote on audit criteria and actually influence the development of that by their sitting on sub-teams to revise existing documents or indeed create new ones. And suppliers actually can become a representative for the supplier support committee, which really helps our suppliers out in the Nadcap program. There's a real great group of that committee that really assist any suppliers new to the Nadcap program. And of course, suppliers can use the Nadcap logos and promote their accreditations on their company websites or indeed on any company documentation. So finally, here are our next 5 Nadcap meetings. In 2 weeks' time in Madrid. We're in October in Pittsburgh. We're in San Francisco in February 26. We're in Pittsburgh in June 26, and then we are going back to Southeast Asia for the first time in 16 years in October 26 to Singapore. And then from memory in 27 February, we're in Anaheim, California. We're in Paris, France, and then October 27, we're back in Pittsburgh. These slides will be made available through Zane, and I will take any questions, and I'll just put my details up again. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions from the audience if you have them saved up. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard. So at this time, as Richard mentioned, I'd like to open the floor to questions and answers, and you can either come off mute and ask directly or submit via the chat, and I'll read them off. And I'll just start with a couple things we have here in the chat. Let me see. Richard, it looks like the sharing just cut off. If you can have that slide back up so everybody can
keep your
contact info up there. But why is that? Chuck mentioned that as per ISO ASTM 52900 terminology, please use the term MEX in place of FFF. So I guess that's more of a statement than a question, but Michael Mowens also submitted a question. Is the AM laser powder bed fusion audit AC7031 checklist available? It does not appear on the website checklist page.
Okay. Well, I'll answer those in the order. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. You know, with regard to fused filament fabrication that we're looking at, we are debating that, and at the moment in our title we have fused filament fabrication, but in the scope that we're writing at the moment we also say, also known as fused deposition modeling, which it is in the United Kingdom, filament layer manufacturing, or material extrusion, MEX, which is the ISO ASTM term, which that contributor rightly pointed out. So we are looking at that to ensure that whatever name that we utilize, we will pick up accordingly, and we'll do the same thing with selective laser sintering. With regard to the second question, in the Nadcap, in the e-audit net area, for under audit criteria for additive manufacturing, you should see 7131/1 up there, and it says revision A effective from audits from the 3rd of August. So if that contributor can't find, if that person who asked the question can't find that, please, my details are on the screen at the moment. Please contact me, and I'll have a separate dialogue with you and try and help you to. I can certainly get that documentation for you and help you navigate eAuditNet as well.
I'm also not coming across that there, so that's definitely something to circle back with Mike on. Paul asked, you mentioned safe use of power on slide 11. What safety standards do you utilize? NFPA, UL, or ISO/ASTM? Powder, sorry.
On powder, we look at, while a lot of our committee are US based and a lot of them are connected with the SE committee, I know it's not the only brand available. I mean, I still write ISO, ASTM, AM specs because I did that in the previous job and still believe in that. So we do look at AMS SE specs. We also look at ISO specs as well on powder. And of course, there are a number of elements of the way that you manufacture powder and you test it, which fall into the ASTM area. And of course, we utilize in our material testing group, that task group, we utilize ASTM specs routinely for anything from room temperature tensile testing to tap density for powder manufacture. So ASTM specs are widely used in that group because they are the go-to test documents for us in Nadcap. What I could do, Zane, as well, just before I come off the call, is stop sharing and actually put eAuditNet up and actually direct people to where the audit criteria is, if that helps.
Yeah, I think you could go ahead and do that if you'd like while I get this next question here. So got a question from Alex. For castings, are the producers who supply the raw material ingots or granules, aluminum or magnesium, to the casters typically audited and accredited by Nadcap?
No, they're not. We tend to look at for the casting houses, they're buying a master heat or using internally generated revert. We will check to see that the raw material that they utilize, whether that's master heat or revert that wasn't utilized in previous casting and has been remelted, is of the correct composition, etc. So we don't audit that far down the supply chain yet. I mean, that may come, but not yet. So I'll just share my screen just a second here, and hopefully you can see my screen.
It's a little small, but yes.
Okay. Now, as a supplier, you will see once you get into eAuditNet, you see a slightly different version than I do. I'm still working with the classic one because we've done the subscriber app and the supplier app. We're moving through the auditor app, and then the staff engineers will be last. But it's the same process. It's the same process of clicking through. So you would get into resources, then documents, then you go into audit criteria. You go down to additive manufacturing, and there is AC 7131/1 laser and electron beam powder bed for audit starting after the 3rd of August 25. I'll just click on that and it will download, and there's the document. But if anyone is struggling to get that, please drop me a line on my email and I will contact you separately and try and help you through that.
Perfect, thank you. Mike, hopefully that helped. Let us know if it does not. And then we don't have any additional questions at this point. If anybody wants to come off mute and ask directly or have some dialogue, you're welcome to, or throw something in the chat there for to wrap up our session here. We've got about 5 minutes left, so. Gotcha. And Mike just said it. He's working on it now, and it's a bit different from the supplier side.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it to be fair, audit net needed to be updated into more modern templates. So we did the supplier one first, then the subscriber, and the auditor one will be released next year or later this year, and then the staff engineer after that. So the way you saw me get to it is a little different, but it's the same clickable process through the same template. So hopefully Michael will find that. If not, I will endeavour to help him offline.
Fantastic. Well, if nobody else has any questions, I will stay on here for another 5 minutes. But if you are short on time, happy to give you 5 minutes back. And thank you, everybody, for attending. If you have any, like I said, if you have any additional questions, I'll be on here for another 5 minutes if you'd like to ask. Other than that, thank you, everybody, for attending, and I appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one next month. Have a good one.
Thank you. Yeah, so Michael's still on. So yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So let me just get that. I'll just share my screen again, Michael.
Perfect. That will work.
So if you go into resources, then documents, you should see tabs that come up with public documents. Just been a little slow for me now. There we go. So you will see public documents, procedures and forms, audit criteria. So that is resources, documents, and then we're into, hopefully you should see that down one of your menus. And what you need to hit is audit criteria. Click on that. And then you should see a whole, essentially all of the commodities that we look at in alphabetical order, and with additive manufacturing, AC 7131. Click on that, and then you can see the documents in the new core document 7131 and /1 after the 3rd of August. You'll also, there's a clickable link just below that, which gives you the Word copies of the checklist. And the reason that we have that is so people can actually take those and utilize those. People often take all of the questions out of the Word document, put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and start doing a traffic light analysis, red, amber, green, as a gap analysis. And then there's handbook and guides, and we have handbooks for the core document and the 7131 powder bed fusion document. The ones that are still being balloted until they're physically published don't appear on there. They're just within the task group. So I don't know if that has helped Michael. I hope it has.
Yeah, and Mike, if it's easier for you to come off mute, you're welcome to come off and have directly share what if any issues you're running into.
Yeah, am I there, Zane?
Yep, absolutely, we can hear you.
Yeah, the setup I'm in the PREA and suppliers, and the setup is very different than your drop down. Rather than take up people's time, I think what I'd like to do is I'll drop you an email and we can connect up at a later time and walk through it, Dr. Freeman. Thank you. Great presentation today.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm very happy to help. Yeah, it's they do look. You're right. I mean, the look and feel of them is totally different. It's the same clickable process, but it's perhaps not as intuitive as what I was shown on the screen there. So drop me a line and I'll gladly set up a Teams call with you, and you could share your screen and I'll try and walk you through where to go.
That'd be great. I work on the SAE Powder Committee with Dave Abbott, and I'm currently doing I'm currently doing the 17.4 powder standards and part standards. So very interested in getting connected into the Nadcap and getting our qualification as we're moving forward in not only our aerospace, but also maritime industrial base and submarine industrial base opportunities.
Excellent. That's great. Well, I look forward to connecting with you, and thanks for all your work on the SAE committee, because that's a labor of love. I know, having sat in that committee many times, we need those things to keep the industry moving.
Well, I've lived on the E25 aerospace structural committee for the last 30 years.
Okay, right. Excellent. Yeah, it's no, I'm a big believer, and I've always tried to give something back into standards, because without them, we don't progress anything.
Absolutely. Very much appreciated. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. I look forward to your message and I'll get back to you.
Perfect. All right. With that, then we will go ahead and wrap up. I appreciate everybody coming. Feel free to reach out to Richard or myself with any questions, and we will look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.
I think Michael's got his hand up there, or has he come off?